What's going on, guys? In case you haven't heard, on Monday was NHL Draft Lottery, and the New York Islanders actually won the first overall pick, jumping up 9 whole spots, which is kind of crazy. And then the Utah Hockey Club won the second overall pick. Unfortunately for them, you can only jump up a max of 10 spots, so they actually moved to number 4. You then have the Sharks at 2, Blackhawks at 3. So, I mean, they made out pretty well. All the teams there below Utah dropped 2 spots, and then the teams that initially were above Utah actually dropped 1 spot. So, right there, you guys can see the draft order. And kind of funny, today, actually, the Utah Hockey Club is no more. They actually just released their new name, the Utah Mammoth. I'm not sure why they didn't do this on Monday. That way, they had, like, the logo and stuff ready for the draft lottery. But regardless, if you guys look here at the draft board, I've got the Utah Mammoth already ready to go. So, I definitely like this a lot more than Utah Hockey Club. I think the logo is really, really sharp looking. You guys can see it there, actually, like, on Dylan Gunther. I think it's a cool logo. I wish they got, you know, some purple maybe in that jersey just to kind of remember like the old Utah Jazz colors that I thought were clean. Plus, no other NHL team really has those. But the black, the light blue, and the white I think is also pretty sharp. You guys can see I've got like the exact same color jersey behind me there. But 2025 post-lottery mock draft. This is my second mock draft, so definitely have some changes since the last one. And going first overall, I now have Mattew Schaefer. Before, I think I had James Hagens, but it seems like Schaefer at this point is the consensus number 1. Now, the Islanders could decide, you know, they need forwards more. Schaefer's without a doubt the best defenseman in the draft class, could be the best player, but again, if they decide, you know, they want forwards more, they could go that route. I can see scout rankings here. Most have him as a number 1. The lowest ranking is number 3. You can see there's a number 2 there. I think aside from that, though, everybody has him at 1. Actually, sorry, there's 2 number 2 scouting ranks. Now, Schaefer's definitely a bit interesting. He had a really good start to the year, 22 points, 17 games, 2 points, 2 games at World Juniors. He then gets injured, has not played hockey since. So there is like the question of if he had a hot start, would he have, you know, slowed down had he kept playing? Or would he have, you know, actually gotten better? Obviously, time will tell. If he ends up being worthy of that first overall pick, I would say he would have kept it up, if not got better. But if it ends up being not a great pick, I think the injury kind of helped him maybe, you know, get that first overall pick if he ended up, you know, slowing down had he played. So there's definitely a little bit of risk there, but, you know, most of the scouts that are smarter than me, they think Schaefer's the best player available. So I do have him going number 1 to the Islanders. And I think, too, like, he shoots left-handed. A future top pairing of him and Noah Dobson for years to come would be great on Long Island. And now next year, guys, number 2 with the San Jose Sharks, who have talked about potentially trading down. I think if Schaefer's off the board, they definitely would consider that. They need him more than anybody else. Maybe they'd even consider, you know, trying to trade up with the Islanders to get that number 1 pick. But at number 2 here, with what's left on the board, assuming no trades, I got to take a Michael Misa. I think at this point, Michael Misa is, you know, the best forward in the draft class. Pretty crazy just kind of what he did post World Juniors. He definitely had that chip on his shoulder not being selected to the team. You guys come and look at his point total here. 134 in 65 games, 62 goals, almost a point per game, was absolutely crushing it there with the Saginaw Spirit. Luckily for me, I've actually watched him play a bunch of times. Being a Spitfire season ticket holder, he's been, you know, playing for them since he was 15, and even at 15 years old, you know, you could tell he was a good player. I'd say last year for sure is where he kind of started taking over games. This year, though, of course, I mean, come on, a goal a game is crazy, especially in your draft year. Playoffs, they actually got bounced first round, I believe, by Erie. He had 3 points there in 4 games. I should mention, too, I have seen, you know, Schaefer play a bit. I think only a couple times, and that was both last year when he was 16. Was impressive for a 16-year-old. And again, I think Misa, you know, just dominated the OHL this year. You look at his scouting rankings. Most people have him at 2. A couple 1s, a couple 3s. There's 1 4 there, but he seems to be a consensus top forward in this draft class. And again, it's still so crazy to me looking back and him not making that World Junior team. And now next year, guys, number 3, the Chicago Blackhawks. This is probably my first, like, surprise pick. I've got Anton Frondell going here. Reason being, I've heard some rumors that the Blackhawks are, you know, interested in Frondell. At number 3, it's not too much of a reach. Most people have him going around the 5 spot. Now, he is obviously going above a couple other players here, but Frondell's probably the best two-way forward in the draft class. He's a centerman, so I think maybe it gives them options here if they want to have him as the 1C and move Bedard to the wing, or they want him as the 2C behind Bedard. Bedard's kind of like your all-offensive center, where Frondell, you can play in the power play, also in the PK, just kind of do it all for you. I'm sure in their mind, he's like the ideal, perfect, you know, 2C behind Connor Bedard. Now, you look at his rankings, definitely a bigger variation there. He is considered the number 1 EU skater, but as low as number 18 by Draft Prospects Hockey, which I think is kind of crazy. Bob McKenzie, Craig Button have him 4 and 5. Bob McKenzie's are usually pretty good because they're kind of just like a mix of all the other scouts. He's got him 5 there, so it's not a crazy reach. Playing in the 2nd Swedish league here for Djurgården, 25 points, 29 games. So he's playing against men, but it is, you know, the 2nd league, so it can be kind of like the AHL of Sweden. Close to point per game. Playoffs, or actually just qualification they call it, 7 and 16. At the World Juniors, he had 2 and 2. And next year, he's actually playing in the SHL against higher competition. So, assuming he doesn't make the NHL, which he probably won't, that should be good for his game. But like I said, guys, he's the best two-way forward, I think, in this draft class. So, he's not like a super big player or anything, but 200 pounds, he's solid. I think like Chicago, if they're looking at, just their lineup, he would fit them. So we'll see if they actually do go that route. I'm sure a lot of people will be shocked. And now number 4 here, guys, we have the Utah Mammoth making their first ever pick as the Mammoth. And I feel like that's a pretty fitting pick. The Mammoth, of course, are huge. Why not take the best power forward in the draft class, Porter Martone. He's a big boy, played for the Brampton Steelheads this year. You guys can see there, 6'3", 207 pounds. He's a winger. I feel like, Utah, they've already got Logan Cooley as their 1C. I think TJ Ginla probably ends up being a 2C unless he does move to the wing. I can see here, like I said, power forward. He also has a puck handler, sniper. Draft rankings for him anywhere from 2 to 4. Like, he's definitely considered consensus top 4 pick there. Again, for his season, 98 points, 67 games, 37 goals. Definitely tore it up this season in his draft year. Playoffs, had 9-6. He did play at the World Juniors, only had 1 goal. I mean, the Canadian team overall wasn't too great. Even the year before at 16, he had 71 points. I still can't believe in his rookie season, the Sarnia Sting actually traded him. Like, you very rarely see a future top 5 pick traded in the CHL. Most of the time, teams hold on to those guys, build around them. But like I was saying, I think Utah's already got their 1C, their 2C. Defensively, I think, they do have some guys coming. You could go defenseman here, but I think it'd be a much bigger reach. So you're taking best player available. Porter Martone is that. And I also think he does fit a need for them, getting bigger. I feel like, honestly, this is a perfect pick. Like I said, he's a Mammoth player. Why not go to the Utah Mammoth? And now next year, guys, we got the Nashville Predators. So we kind of got like the Ice Age teams back to back here. If you guys watched that back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. At number 5, though, I got the Nashville Predators taking James Hagens. Obviously, they definitely underperformed this year, and I think they get a massive, massive pick. Obviously, Hagens was the consensus 1 for this year's draft last year, but kind of fell down a little bit, even though I think he's played pretty well. He's a centerman, a little bit smaller, 5'11", 176. You can see there, cerebral tactician. I think Frondell had that as well. Speedster, two-way center. I think he's also a solid playmaker. I can see his rankings here as high as 1, and then all the way down to 6. Most people, though, have him between, 2 and 4. So getting him at 5, I think, would actually be a steal for the Nashville Predators. Easily could be, their future 1C. This year at Boston College, he was playing there as a 17/18-year-old. He's one of those guys with like the late birthday 06. So if he was born a couple months earlier, would have been last year's draft. He had a point per game, though. I think, World Juniors, he looked really good for the Americans. Over a point per game. Last year, United States under 18 team, 102 and 58. Like, there's a reason this guy was considered, first overall pick caliber. I think if they get him at 5, this is a steal. I'm really curious to see if any of those teams above them still have Hagens, higher ranked than some of the other guys. But, right now, it seems like he's fallen a bit. It's tough to say. Like, Shane Wright did fall from 1 to 4. I remember there's been some other guys that have fallen, but then other times you hear guys are falling, and then, a team still takes them where we expect. So, will be interesting to see. For sure, I don't see him making it by the Preds. If he's there, like I said, a great pick for them. And now next up, guys, number 6 pick with the Philadelphia Flyers. I feel like their team definitely, looking for best player available, and lucky for them, it's a great player in my opinion in Caleb Desnoyers. He tore up the queue this year. He's a pretty solid centerman, 6'2", 172. So he's got the height, doesn't really have the weight, but it's a lot easier to, add pounds than it is to add inches. So I think he'll fill out, and honestly, he probably projects to be a potential 1C. Imagine him with Michkov. You guys can see here, he's a great playmaker. I feel like those two could be an absolute duo. Maybe have, Konechny on the other wing, something like that. You guys look at his rankings, anywhere from 5 to as low as 14, which, once you start getting lower in the draft, the rankings start to really widen based on the different scouts. But this year in the Q, he had an awesome year, 84 points there, 56 games. In the playoffs, you can almost argue he was better, 24 and 13. Like, yeah, he was close to 2 points a game in the playoffs against better competition. Like, that is honestly so impressive. And I think, too, like, you can never have a lack of center prospects. I would say center is arguably the most important position in hockey. You could argue number 1 defenseman or maybe a goaltender. I personally think nowadays you can have a decent tandem and be fine. Look at the Leafs. But a 1C and number 1 defenseman, every single team needs those. Now, the Flyers do have Jet Luchenko, but I feel like he'll probably end up being more of a 2C, where Caleb Desnoyers, I think, does have that 1C potential. So I think that'd be a great pick for the Flyers at 6. And now next up here, guys, number 7, we got the Boston Bruins taking Roger McQueen, another big power forward, plays the center position. As you guys can see here, he's 6'5". They actually have him listed as a forward, so maybe he does, sometimes go to the wing in junior. One interesting thing, actually, I thought about maybe having the Flyers take him, but he plays for the Brandon Wheat Kings, and this year he's had some injury issues, so I feel like there'd be way too much, PTSD with the Flyers taking a Brandon Wheat King with injury issues. Obviously, I'm talking about Nolan Patrick. You guys can see this year, though, even in his limited games played, 20 points, 17 games. He only had a goal there in 3 playoff games, but the year before that, 51 points, 53 games. So close to a point per game the year before his draft year, I think is very, very impressive. Looking back here, too, at the scouting rankings, anywhere from as high as 5 all the way down to 12, or actually 17. Wow. So I think, again, at 7, this is a pretty solid pick. The Boston Bruins, they're starting that retool / rebuild. It might be more of a rebuild, I think. They're just hoping they can get it done while, McAvoy, Pastrnak are still really solid players. You look at Boston, they lost Bergeron. Elijah Lindholm's not really it. I think, Roger McQueen definitely hits a need for them. Also, too, I think probably the best player available. So if ever you can get both of those, best player available who happens to hit a need, you got to jump on that. And I feel like the Boston Bruins will do just that, taking them at 7. And our next year, guys, number 8, we have the Seattle Kraken. I think they go with Victor Eklund here. This is a team that definitely is in need of skill. Being an expansion team, they never really had those high-end offensive players. They had like kind of the more middle guys who, some of them did turn out really well. Say your Jared McCanns. Matty Beniers is looking like more of a, 50-point two-way center. That's probably more of a 2C. I think Shane Wright's kind of similar. They're looking for some guys that can, put up points. I think Victor Eklund can do that. He's a winger here, decent size. They got him as a tactician, speedster, two-way forward. I think, should be able to do it all for them. Rankings here, anywhere as high as 6 and as low as 10. So his rankings are actually a bit more, condensed here. Most people think he should be a lock at the top 10. Number 2 EU skater there, of course, behind Frondell. You look at his points. He actually had more than Frondell, but he also had more games played. So 31 there and 42. He's a winger at the World Juniors. He actually had 6 and 7, which I think is really impressive. And again, he'll be playing the SHL, the Swedish top men's league, next season. So I think for him, like I said, you're looking for skill. It says right here, plays with good intensity, brings to the ice an encouraging mix of drive and skill. I think he's a guy that, could fit well with the Kraken. Maybe ends up being a nice complementary piece to a Matty Beniers or a Shane Wright in the future. So I think, for the Kraken, you're looking for the most skilled player available, and at number 8, I think it'd be Eklund. And now next up here, guys, we have the Buffalo Sabres, longest playoff drought in the NHL. Pick at number 9, they take Jake O'Brien. I think for them, kind of similar to Seattle, you're just looking for best player available, somebody to hopefully help you get out of this rut. Jake O'Brien had an absolutely amazing season this year in the OHL, 98 points, 66 games in his draft year. Even last year, he was over a point per game. He's a point per game in the playoffs. Like, this dude, I think, could be a 1C, 6'2", so he's got the size. Another guy that's a little bit underweight at 170, but the dude's still 17. He's going to be freshly 18 by the time of the draft, so you can definitely add that size. Right-handed center. You guys look at his rankings. Definitely more all over the place, as high as 8 and as low as 26. Most people, though, I'm seeing talk about him are like hoping that their team can get him in like, the 12 to 17 spot. I personally think he'll be gone in that top 10. He just did too well in the OHL, and I think of the 3 CHL leagues, the OHL is kind of the highest level talent-wise. So if you perform in the OHL, that's a pretty good indication of be a decent prospect. And again, center position is important. They just made that trade, Cousins for Norris. We'll see what happens with Norris. Obviously has injury issues. I think even too, Tage Thompson's more of a winger than a center. I think Jake O'Brien here could really fit the Buffalo Sabres, what they're looking for in the future. And now next up, guys, number 10, we got the Anaheim Ducks. I really wish they were just the Mighty Ducks at this point, like they got the logo. I got them taking Radim Mrtka, so he's like the second coming of Zdeno Chara. I've talked about him before. He's from the Czech Republic, opposed to Slovakia, but I mean, it's pretty close. He's 6'6" already at 17. Right-handed defenseman, plays with Seattle Thunderbird. If you look at his rankings, they're also quite close, anywhere from 9 to 15, so pretty much, or I guess 16 there. He's pretty much consensus, top half of the first round pick. I haven't really seen anyone actually have him go this high, and I feel like for the Ducks, they definitely need defense more than forwards. He's a guy that, depending on your rankings, could be best player available, and a right-handed defenseman they need so much. He also puts up good amount of points, 35 there, 43 games. Playing the WHL, he had 3 and 6 in the playoffs. Obviously, he was playing over in Czech Republic before this year. But for me, the right-handed shot, the size, you look at the Ducks defense, they have a lot of, smaller left-handed defensemen. I'm thinking, of course, Olin Zellweger, but then even, Mintkov, I don't think, he might be 6'3", and I'm totally wrong, but I don't think he's the biggest guy. He's also left-handed. That's kind of the most important thing. Jackson Lacombe sometimes plays the right side, but he's also left-handed. They need that right shot on D. He also gives them that size. I think, honestly, it'd be such a perfect piece for them. This is a guy that I really think is going to go to the Ducks there at 10. Obviously, you'll have to wait and see, but my personal opinion, he'd be the perfect pick there for the Anaheim Ducks. And now next up, guys, at number 11, we got another bird. This time it's the Penguins. So I've got Pittsburgh taking Jackson Smith, another defenseman off the board. A lot of people do have him as the number 2 defenseman behind Matthew Schaefer, but again, if you look, he's left-handed. I think if, the Ducks, for instance, say him and Merck are tied in terms of talent and just prospect rating, you go with the right-handed shot, just kind of help you out there in the future, because all their lefties are guys that are young, should be with the team, down the line when they're actually competing. His rankings here are also pretty tight, anywhere from as high as 6 to as low as 15. So again, he should be, top half pick there, especially if a team needs defense. 6'3", so pretty good size. Look at his points in the WHL this year, 54 and 68. The year before that, he had 29 and 62. I feel like he's a solid, two-way defenseman, can provide offense, also, give you good defense. And you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins right now, they're a team that kind of just needs everything. They need forwards, defense. I guess goalie, they might be okay with, Blomqvist. He's looking like he could be their future starting goalie, but aside from him, they need a lot of prospects there for the post-Crosby era. I think Jackson Smith, if you're looking at best player available, he could be that guy. Is he going to be a future number one? Maybe. I feel like he's probably more of a top 4 defenseman, but still, you definitely need guys like him, so I think it'd be a solid pick for the Penguins. And now next up, guys, number 12, the New York Rangers, a team I thought would be in the playoffs this year. They find themselves, picking at 12, so pretty high pick. They got to make the most of it, try and get back to the playoffs next year. I've got them taking Carter Bear. Obviously, for the Rangers, they're already good enough to be a playoff team. They just had a down year, in my opinion, probably a fluke. I think you just go best player available. At this point, there's definitely an argument. It is Carter Bear. He can play center. He can play wing. 6 foot tall there, so good size. Rankings anywhere from 8 all the way down to 22, it looks like. He's just a forward with a ton of skill. You can see here, 82 points, 56 games. The year before that, close 2 point per game, playing at Everett in the WHL. I think he's a guy that also, has a bit of grit to his game. Obviously, at this point in the draft, you're just trying to take guys who you think are, going to eventually be NHL players, and I feel like Bear should be a top 6 winger. So, and I think that's something the Rangers definitely, could use in a few years' time. They already got Lafreniere, but Chris Kreider's not getting any younger. Same goes for Panarin. I think, Carter Bear could be a nice, boost to their team once he makes the jump to the NHL. And now next year, guys, got my team, the Detroit Red Wings, number 13. So I still believe in the Yzer plan. Who's he going to take here? My guess is Kashawn Atchison. I hope I said his name right. It's a bit of a tougher one. He's actually a defenseman who plays for the Barrie Colts in the OHL. Now, I know the Red Wings love taking their Europeans, but honestly, at this point in the draft, I don't even know who they would take. I might be, shocked come 13, but most of the guys available are North American at this point. Now, and I think a left shot defenseman is exactly what we need. Atchison should go around this spot. He's a guy that brings some offense. You can see mobile defenseman, brings some physicality, two-way there. They got all the player types. I definitely like this. I'll make it a lot easier when we build our, custom rosters for the guys that aren't already in NHL 25. Looking at his rankings here, you can see anywhere from as high as 11 to as low as 37. So yeah, definitely we're getting to the spot now where the rankings are widening quite a bit. This year, he had almost a point per game as a D-man in his draft year. I think very impressive. 16 games in the playoffs with the Barrie Colts. He had 12 points. 28 penalty minutes, which honestly kind of a lot, but come playoff time, you got to play grittier. 126 the year before that, so definitely has that physicality to his game. 6'1", 200 pounds, obviously pretty good size, could get bigger. I think we just need another decent defenseman for that future top 4. If you look at Evans and Sider as your number 1, somebody on the left side to play with Standing Pellica. I think forward wise, we should be okay with what we have. Larkin, Raymond, Casper, Brandstad, Nygaard, Danielson. Obviously, DeBrinket's still, pretty young too. I feel like a left-hand defenseman is our number 1 need for sure. And at this point, you could make an argument maybe somebody else is a better player. But if it's close and you have that big need, which we do, I think you go for the need. So that's why I have them taking Atchison here at 13. And now next year, guys, number 14, I got the Columbus Blue Jackets taking Logan Hensler. I wasn't really sure what they were going to do at this spot, whether it be, forward, defenseman, maybe even a goaltender. I do think they'll take a goalie with their second first-round pick, Ravensburgen, if he's available. But at number 14 here, I have them taking Hensler. Played actually at the University of Wisconsin this year. Had pretty good numbers as a freshman, I'd say, like 12 and 32. Obviously, he's younger. He just turned 18 in October. Was actually on the World Junior team, only had a point. But, this is a guy who was supposed to be, I think, top 10 pick early on in the year. He's definitely fell down a bit. I still have him going at 14. I think for me, they made that trade with Jaracek. Maybe they want to try to replace him. That's often what happens when teams, trade away kind of a more top prospect. You look at his player type there, mobile defenseman, two-way, 6'2", almost 200 pounds. Right shot there, which obviously everyone always wants for those defensemen. Rankings for him, anywhere as high as 11, all the way down to 31. I just think, looking at the Blue Jackets, this is a guy that definitely could help them out. They could draft another forward. There's some good forwards available too, but I just have a kind of a feeling that they're going to go with Hensler here. Maybe another defenseman, but this spot, in my opinion, is definitely the best defenseman available. So we'll see if I'm wrong, but I got the Blue Jackets taking Hensler. And now next year, guys, number 15, we got the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously underperformed a bit this year, missing the playoffs. You're going to have a new head coach now. I got them taking Brady Martin at number 15. He's probably the best center still in the draft. Definitely for the Canucks, they need a centerman. He's not going to come in right away, but you look at the depth chart. I'm not a huge believer in Hiddle. Behind Petey, they don't have much. Obviously, Quinn Hughes may or may not stay, but Brady Martin kind of does it all for you. 6 foot tall. You can see there, heavy hitter, physical forward, two-way center. He puts up points too, like 72 and 57. almost a point per game in the playoffs. Under 18, he was 11-7 there. Last year, he only had 28 and 52, so definitely, stepped up his game this year for sure. I think he's a guy that definitely could be almost like your perfect 2C. We were talking about that, I think, too, with Frondell in Chicago. Obviously, Frondell a much kind of better version of this, especially you already have Connor Bedard there. Frondell maybe even has the potential to be a 1C, but I think Brady Martin here could be a great pick for the Canucks. Another guy I've seen a lot of teams that are, picking between 11 and 17, hoping falls to them. So we'll see if he's still around. If he is, I think the Canucks snag him. And now finally here, guys, at number 16, we have the Montreal Canadiens. I got them taking Malcolm Spence. If you guys didn't know, the Montreal Canadiens actually have back-to-back picks, 16 and 17. So hopefully they'll take Spence with one of their 2 picks, and I'll look smart. As you guys can see, Malcolm Spence played for the Erie Otters. Left winger there, 6'2", 200 pounds, good size for sure. Rankings from 10 to 29. He's a guy that plays with a ton of grit. I've seen him play a good amount. He's always going to the corners. He's taking some penalties. He's playing with the edge. I think, all teams look for that kind of player. Montreal, I'm sure, is no exception. This year, over a point per game. Last year was close to a point per game. Even the year before that, his rookie season, 42 points there. He's actually one of the older players in the draft with that September 22nd birthday. So, obviously, that's probably going to play into his draft stock a bit. But in the playoffs this year, point per game. And like I said, he's maybe, in terms of his play style, he's not as good, obviously, but think of like, a Matthew, a Brady Tkachuk. He plays with that edge. I think, he's a poor man's version, but still, teams love players like that. He puts up points. I think at number 16 here, the Montreal Canadiens can snag him with one of their 2 picks. They'll be very, very happy. And that's going to do it, guys, for my second 2025 mock draft. I'm going to do another one of these for the entire first round once the playoffs are over and we actually know the exact order. But for now, it's just the top 16. Let me know in the comment section which player you think your team's going to take. And as always, guys, if you did enjoy this video, leave that thumbs up, subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.